betrayal of Trust Commander James Harrison remembered the day humanity received its invitation to join the Galactic Alliance. The massive crystalline ship had appeared above Earth without warning, its surface reflecting sunlight in patterns that seemed to shift between dimensions. Inside, Ambassador Krell of the Vorten Empire had extended a four-fingered hand in friendship. His species stood 9 feet tall with skin that shimmered like liquid mercury, and when he spoke, his voice resonated with the weight of 1,000 civilizations. The Alliance consisted of 412 species spread across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Each member contributed something unique to the collective. The Vorthens provided advanced propulsion technology. The Seraphim offered their mastery of energy manipulation. The Collectors maintained the vast libraries of knowledge that dated back millions of years. When Krell looked at Earth's representatives, he saw potential in humanity's adaptability and innovative spirit. What he failed to see was the iron will that had carried humans through ice ages, plagues, and world wars. 3 years passed in what felt like moments. Human colonies sprouted across 17 star systems, each one a testament to humanity's eagerness to embrace their new role in the galaxy. The colony on Kepler 442b became a hub for agricultural innovation, feeding dozens of alien worlds with crops they had never imagined. The mining operations in the asteroid belt of Proxima Centauri supplied rare minerals to Alliance shipyards. Children grew up learning alien languages alongside their native tongues, and human art found its way into galleries on worlds where the concept of visual beauty took forms beyond human comprehension. Director Maria Santos served as Earth's primary representative to the Galactic Council. She had spent her youth as a diplomat in the United Nations, mediating conflicts between nations that now seemed trivially small compared to the vast stage of galactic politics. The Council chamber on Nexus Prime dwarfed any structure on Earth. Its walls curved upward for nearly a kilometer, covered in living metal that displayed the history of the Alliance in moving murals. Maria often found herself staring at those walls during council sessions, watching civilizations rise and fall in artistic representation, while the real powers of the galaxy debated the fate of trillions. The Zenith arrived without warning, just as the Vorthens had years before, but their intentions were far from peaceful. These beings existed as pure consciousness housed in mechanical shells that could reshape themselves at will. They consumed energy directly from stars, leaving dead solar systems in their wake. Their first attack obliterated 3 Seraphim colonies, in minutes, draining their suns until nothing remained but frozen rocks orbiting points of absolute darkness. The Alliance had faced threats before, but nothing like this. The Zenith didn't negotiate, didn't communicate, and didn't stop. High Chancellor Thrak of the Vorten Empire called an emergency session that would determine the fate of dozens of species. His voice echoed through the chamber as he presented the tactical situation. The Zenith were moving through the galaxy in a predictable pattern, following the spiral arms toward the galactic core. Mathematical models showed they would reach the heart of Alliance space within 6 months. The Council's combined fleet could mount a defense, but not everywhere at once. Choices had to be made about which worlds to protect and which to abandon. The debate lasted for 72 hours without pause. Species with regenerative abilities didn't need sleep, and stimulants kept the others functional. Maria watched as alliances within the Alliance formed and dissolved. The core worlds, those that had been part of the Council for millennia, banded together immediately. Their representatives spoke of duty to preserve the knowledge and culture that formed the foundation of galactic civilization. The newer members, including humanity, found themselves increasingly isolated as the discussion progressed. When the vote finally came, Maria felt her heart sink before the first hand was raised. The Council would consolidate all military assets around 47 core systems. The outer colonies, including all 17 human settlements, would receive no protection. Ambassador Krell avoided her gaze as he voted in favor of the plan. The Seraphim representative, who had once called humanity the future of the Alliance, raised her crystalline appendage in agreement. 408 species voted to leave humanity's colonies defenseless. Only Earth and 3 other newcomer species voted against the measure. Maria stood as the results were announced, her voice cutting through the ceremonial conclusions. She asked how the Council could simply abandon billions of sentient beings. High Chancellor Thrak responded with cold logic that had guided the Alliance for eons. The needs of the many outweighed the needs of the few. The core worlds contained the majority of the population and the accumulated knowledge of millions of years. The outer colonies were expendable by comparison. When Maria pressed further, asking about evacuation efforts, she was told that moving the fleet to rescue operations would leave gaps in the defensive line. The decision was final. The journey back to Earth took 3 days through hyperspace. Maria spent every hour reviewing the footage from the Council session, looking for some sign that she had misunderstood, that there was some hidden plan to save humanity's colonies. She found nothing but calculated indifference. The Alliance viewed humans as useful contributors but ultimately disposable. They had welcomed humanity with open arms when it served their purposes, and now they discarded them just as easily. President Chen received her report in the secure bunker beneath Mount Weather. The room contained only 5 people, the absolute minimum who needed to know the full truth immediately. General Thompson, head of Earth's combined military forces, remained silent as Maria described the Council's betrayal. Director Kim of the Science Division stopped taking notes halfway through, his stylus hanging motionless above his tablet. Secretary of Colonies Jack Williams had family on 3 of the abandoned worlds. His face went pale, then red, then settled into something harder than stone. The president asked a single question that would change the course of galactic history. He wanted to know if the Council would prevent Earth from attempting its own evacuation efforts. Maria confirmed that any ships diverted from their assigned defensive positions would be considered deserters. The Alliance would treat them as pirates, enemies of the state to be destroyed on sight. Earth could follow orders and watch its children die, or it could resist and be expelled from the Alliance entirely. There was no middle ground. The first footage from the colonies arrived 12 hours later. New horizons, humanity's pride, fell in minutes. The zenith surrounded the planet with their mechanical forms, each one the size of a city. They extended tendrils of pure energy down to the surface, draining the life force of every living thing. The colonists didn't even have time to reach the shelters. Parents died shielding children who dissolved moments later. The planet's atmosphere burned away, leaving only a frozen husk that would drift through space forever. The Harvest Moon colony managed to broadcast for 47 minutes before the end. Governor Patricia Wells stood at her desk, speaking calmly to the camera while hell descended outside her window. She talked about her daughter on Earth, about the garden she had planted that would never bloom, about the promise of humanity's future among the stars. Behind her, the sky turned from blue to orange to black. She never stopped speaking, even as the building shook and the lights failed. Her last words were a message to Earth. "Remember us," she said. "Remember what they let happen." By the time the zenith finished with humanity's colonies, 14 billion humans were dead. The Alliance's defensive line held exactly as planned. The core worlds remained untouched while the outer territories burned. High Chancellor Thrak sent a message of condolence to Earth, praising humanity's sacrifice for the greater good. He offered full membership benefits to Earth itself, including preferred trade status and access to advanced technologies. The message ended with an invitation for humanity to send new representatives to the Council to continue their partnership in building a better galaxy. President Chen read the message once, then deleted it without responding. Around him, Earth's leadership sat in silence that held more meaning than any words. General Thompson finally spoke, saying what everyone was thinking. The Alliance had made a mistake. They thought humans would accept this loss as the price of membership. They thought humanity would mourn and move on. They had no idea what they had awakened. Humans didn't. The reckoning begins. The withdrawal began quietly, without fanfare or announcement. Human merchants stopped arriving at Alliance trading posts. Human scientists recalled their research teams from joint facilities. Human diplomats submitted polite resignations from their positions. Within 6 weeks, not a single human remained in Alliance space. The Council barely noticed at first. too busy celebrating their victory over the zenith to care about one species' apparent tantrum. Beneath the surface of Earth, in caverns that stretched for thousands of miles, humanity's real response took shape. The excavations had begun the day after first contact, a contingency plan that everyone hoped would never be needed. President Chen's grandfather had insisted on it, remembering Earth's history of betrayed trusts and broken treaties. The facilities were designed to be invisible to Alliance sensors, shielded by miles of rock and electromagnetic interference generators that made deep scanning impossible. Dr. Lisa Chang stood in the primary construction bay, watching the skeleton of humanity's first true warship take form. The Alliance had shared their ship designs freely, confident in their superiority. What they hadn't realized was that humans didn't just copy technology, they improved it. Every system had been reimagined through the lens of human creativity and paranoia. Where Alliance ships relied on automation and artificial intelligence, human vessels integrated their crews directly into the ship's nervous system through neural interfaces that the Alliance considered too dangerous to use. The neural interface program had recruited volunteers from across Earth. They weren't soldiers in the traditional sense, but ordinary people who had lost everything. Teachers, engineers, doctors and farmers lined up by the millions to undergo the surgical procedures that would let them merge their minds with warship systems. The Alliance races couldn't understand why humans would risk such integration. They had never experienced the kind of loss that made personal safety irrelevant compared to the need for justice. Captain Michael Torres had lost his wife and 3 children on the New Horizons colony. The neural crown embedded in his skull let him feel every system of his ship, the Nemesis, as if it were part of his own body. The weapons were his fists, the engines his legs, the sensors his eyes. Around him, 1,500 crew members shared the same connection, their consciousness forming a collective that could react faster than any computer. When they moved together, the ship became something more than metal and energy. It became humanity's vengeance given form. The first test flight took place in the outer solar system, far from any Alliance observation posts. The Nemesis accelerated from 0 to half-light speed in 3 seconds, a feat that should have torn any ship apart. The inertial dampeners, redesigned by humans who understood that sometimes you needed to feel the acceleration to truly control it, held perfectly. The weapons test vaporized an asteroid the size of Manhattan with a single shot. The stealth systems made the ship invisible to every detection method the Alliance had shared with humanity. 6 months after the last human left Alliance space, Earth's war fleet was ready. 147 vessels, each one crewed by people who had nothing left to lose and everything to prove. They didn't carry the sleek beauty of Alliance ships or the organic curves of Seraphim vessels. Human warships looked like what they were. Instruments of calculated violence designed by a species that had turned warfare into an art form over thousands of years of practice. The fleet's first target was a Vorthon supply depot in the Cygnus system. It serviced the ships that had enforced the blockade while human colonies died. Commander Patricia Lee, whose parents had been on Harvest Moon, led the assault. 30 human ships appeared from hyperspace simultaneously, their arrival coordinated to the microsecond. The depot's defenders had 12 seconds to respond before the first missiles struck. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 43 seconds. The depot was gone, vaporized so completely that only molecular dust remained. The Alliance's response was predictable. High Chancellor Thrak appeared on every communication channel, condemning humanity's unprovoked attack. He demanded Earth's immediate surrender and threatened full military retaliation. The Council voted unanimously to declare humanity a rogue state, an enemy of galactic peace. They mobilized their grand fleet, 5,000 ships from 400 species, to put down what they saw as a minor rebellion by an upstart race. Admiral Sarah Mitchell watched the Alliance fleet gather from her command ship, the Reaper. She had spent 3 years studying Alliance tactics while serving as a military liaison. Their formations were perfect, their technology superior, their numbers overwhelming. They had every advantage except one. They fought to maintain order, to preserve the status quo. Humans fought because they had already lost everything that mattered. That kind of motivation changed the rules of engagement in ways the Alliance couldn't comprehend. The Battle of Kepler 442b took place in the ruins of humanity's first colony. The Alliance fleet arrived expecting to find human ships arranged in traditional battle formations. Instead, they found empty space and the ghostly remains of a dead world. Admiral Zeth of the Seraphim commanded the Alliance forces. His consciousness spread across a dozen avatar bodies to better coordinate the fleet. He ordered deep scans of the system, confident that human ships were hiding behind some primitive, cloaking device. The human fleet wasn't hiding, they were hunting. Small wolf packs of 3 to 5 ships appeared and disappeared throughout the system, striking at isolated Alliance vessels before vanishing into hyperspace. The attack seemed random at first, hitting supply ships here, scouts there. Admiral Zeth tried to adapt, forming defensive clusters that could support each other. That's when the real assault began. 50 human ships emerged from hyperspace inside the Alliance formation, so close that their hulls almost touched enemy vessels. The neural-linked crews reacted faster than thought, firing weapons before Alliance computers could calculate firing solutions. Human ships rolled and twisted through space in maneuvers that should have killed their crews, but the neural integration let them endure forces that would crush unaugmented bodies. They fought like living creatures rather than machines, unpredictable and savage. When the Alliance finally drove them off, they had lost 300 ships. The humans had lost 12. The news of the battle spread through Alliance space faster than official channels could control it. 412 species began to question what they thought they knew about humanity. The Council had dismissed humans as emotional primitives who needed generations to match Alliance capabilities. Instead, they faced an enemy that had revolutionized warfare in months, that turned their own shared technology against them, that fought with a fury the galaxy hadn't seen in millions of years. Back on Earth, President Chen stood before the assembled leaders of humanity's war effort. The Alliance had sent another message, this time offering to negotiate. They proposed a cessation of hostilities, a return to the previous status quo, and compensation for the lost colonies in the form of technology transfers. Chen read the offer aloud, then asked for responses. The room remained silent for a full minute before General Thompson spoke. He said the Alliance still didn't understand. This wasn't about compensation or technology. This was about justice. The war had only just begun. In hidden shipyards across the solar system, new vessels were already under construction. Each one incorporated lessons learned from the Battle of Kepler 442b. The neural interface program had expanded to include civilians who would never see combat, but could contribute their minds to logistics, planning, and support roles. Children who had lost parents on the colonies grew up training for the day they could take their place in the fleet. The Alliance controlled 400 star systems with populations in the trillions. They had resources humanity couldn't match, technology developed over eons, and the combined military might of hundreds of species. By every logical measure, humanity couldn't win this war. But humans had never been particularly logical when it came to protecting their own. They had turned disadvantage into victory throughout their history, from Thermopylae to Stalingrad to the Mars Rebellion. As Earth's war fleet prepared for its next strike, a message played on repeat across human space. It was Governor Patricia Wells' final transmission from Harvest Moon, her calm voice speaking of gardens that would never bloom. Every human ship carried those words into battle. Every crew member knew why they fought. The Alliance had thought humanity would accept the loss of 14 billion souls as a necessary sacrifice. They were about to learn that humans had a different definition of necessity. The galaxy had made its choice when it abandoned humanity's children to die. Now humanity would make its own choice. Not for conquest or glory, but for a simple truth the Alliance had forgotten. Some things were worth fighting for, worth dying, worth burning the galaxy to ashes for. Family was one of them. The Alliance had broken the most sacred rule of human existence. They had hurt humanity's children. The galaxy would tremble before this war was over. The pristine council chambers would echo with the names of the human dead. The core worlds that had voted for safety over mercy would learn what it meant to be truly alone. High Chancellor Thrak would stand in the ruins of everything he had tried to preserve and finally understand the mistake he had made. He had thought humans were just another species to be managed, controlled, and sacrificed when convenient. He was wrong. Humans were something else entirely. They were the species that had split the atom, walked on their moon, and survived every catastrophe their planet could throw at them. They were the ones who rushed toward danger when others fled, who formed bonds stronger than titanium steel, who would rather die standing than live kneeling. The Alliance had awakened something that had been sleeping since humanity joined the galactic community, something primal and terrible and unstoppable. The Warfleet darkened Earth's skies as it prepared for the next assault. 147 ships had become 300. 300 would become 1,000. The Alliance thought they were facing a rebellion. They were actually facing evolution. Humanity was becoming something new, something forged in the fire of betrayal and loss. The galaxy had demanded sacrifice, and humanity would give it to them, but not in the way they expected. The stars themselves would remember what happened when the Galactic Council betrayed Earth.